Okay, ready for another deep dive? You've handed us quite a stack of sources today, and they all seem to zero in on something that, yeah, it flashes across headlines: ship accidents.
Yeah.
But the real focus here, and what these sources really seem to unpack, isn't just the immediate event. It's the truly devastating, long-lasting environmental legacy left behind.
Exactly. Our mission, kind of as we go through this material, is to move beyond that surface level drama.
Hmm.
We want to understand the true environmental cost, the complex web of damage that occurs. And critically, what these sources tell us is actually being done globally to prevent it.
Yeah, and diving into these sources, it becomes abundantly clear this is way more than just the oil spills most of us immediately think of. There's one phrase here that really stands out, describes it as a complex cocktail of hazards.
That phrase perfectly captures it, doesn't it? The multifaceted nature of the threat. The environmental aftermath isn't really a single issue. It's a blend of different forms of pollution and disruption.
So, okay, let's unpack that cocktail. I guess we have to start with oil, because it is the most visible, maybe the most familiar element when these accidents happen.
Absolutely. When crude oil or, refined products or even the heavy fuel ships burn, they often call it bunker fuel when that escapes, the sources detail, well, immediate and severe impacts. It's not just visually shocking, it's acutely toxic and physically damaging.
It literally smothers life, doesn't it?
Precisely, yeah. Think of seabirds covered in oil. It mats their feathers, completely destroys their natural waterproofing and insulation. That leads quickly to hypothermia, makes flight impossible, obviously. And furry marine mammals, like, say, sea otters, they lose that vital air trapped in their fur that keeps them warm. And fish and shellfish are just poisoned, especially by the volatile, really toxic components right when the oil is fresh.
And it doesn't just stay offshore or float around. It, well, inevitably interacts with the coastlines and shallow waters.
Yes, and habitat destruction is a massive long-term problem. Oil coats and penetrates shorelines, rocky intertidal zones, and those incredibly sensitive ecosystems like salt marshes, mangroves, coral reefs. The sources really highlight that it can persist in these environments for years, just fundamentally disrupting the intricate ecological communities living there.
And the toxins don't just sort of stay separate, they actually enter the food chain.
That's a critical point the sources emphasize.
Hmm.
These toxic components, they bioaccumulate, meaning they build up in organisms over time. So as smaller contaminated organisms are eaten by larger ones, those toxins become more concentrated higher up the food web. That process is called biomagnification,
Right.
and this can threaten top predators and potentially even human health through contaminated seafood. Even after the visible cleanup is done, weathered oil can remain locked in sediments, causing chronic issues like developmental problems, tumors, or reproductive failure in marine life for literally decades.
Okay, so oil is one potent ingredient. But like you said, it's a cocktail. The sources make it clear there are other, perhaps less understood, dangerous elements like chemical spills.
Yeah, modern maritime trade involves transporting just an astonishing array of chemicals, often in bulk on specialized tankers or just in containers. When an accident involves these, or even, happens to a container ship carrying maybe poorly declared hazardous materials, the potential for acutely toxic contamination is immense.
The sources even mention sodium cyanide as an example. That sounds bad.
They do, and that's a chilling example because it's incredibly poisonous. Chemicals like that can disrupt cellular function, cause oxygen starvation, and they don't just poison individual animals. A large release can fundamentally alter the chemistry of the seawater itself in that area, making it instantly uninhabitable for marine life.
And just like oil, these can move through the ecosystem too.
Absolutely. Bioaccumulation and biomagnification are definite concerns here too, potentially impacting food webs at all levels. Furthermore, some chemicals react, sometimes violently, when mixed with water or other substances during a spill. That can lead to fires, explosions, release of dangerous airborne pollutants. It complicates response efforts significantly.
So we've got liquid pollutants, oil, and chemicals.
Yeah.
But the sources also highlight physical pollutants and the simple, maybe sometimes overlooked, issue of just cargo loss.
This is a huge, often less visible component of the damage compared to, say, a giant oil slick, but it's incredibly pervasive. When containers are lost overboard, especially during storms or accidents, they can rupture and just dump massive amounts of plastic goods, everything from tiny pellets, nurdles, to consumer products directly into the ocean.
Which just feeds right into the existing plastic pollution crisis we're already dealing with.
Precisely, yeah. We're already struggling with marine plastic, and this just accelerates the problem. The sources remind us of the impacts macroplastics entangling and killing marine animals, and then microplastics absorbing toxins from the water and entering the food web right at the lowest levels, working their way up.
And what about the cargo that doesn't spill out but just sinks, goes to the bottom?
Well, that sunken cargo creates its own set of problems. It can leach harmful substances over time, altering the seabed habitat. Large objects can physically smother benthic organisms' life on the seafloor. And somewhat unexpectedly, it can create navigation hazards for other vessels long after the accident. A particularly insidious form of physical pollution mentioned is ghost fishing gear.
Yeah.
Nets, lines, traps lost or abandoned that just continue to drift or sit on the bottom, indiscriminately trapping and killing marine animals indefinitely. Horrible stuff.
Invasive species are another massive environmental issue, and, well, ships are a primary vector for that, aren't they?
Yeah, this primarily comes down to ballast water. Big issue. Ships take on water in one port they need it for stability sail across oceans, and then discharge that water in a different port, potentially thousands of miles away. And that ballast water can contain all sorts of organisms, microbes, algae, small invertebrates, even fish larvae from the original location.
And if those organisms survive the journey and find the new environment suitable,
They can become invasive species, exactly. If they establish a breeding population where they have no natural predators or competitors, they can just outcompete native species, disrupt food webs, alter habitats, lead to significant biodiversity loss. It's kind of a silent form of pollution that can fundamentally change entire marine ecosystems over time.
finally, the sources touch on an impact that might be maybe the least intuitive for many people: noise pollution from the accident itself or the salvage operations afterwards.
It's often overlooked, yeah, but underwater noise from collisions, explosions, or, prolonged loud salvage work can have really serious effects, particularly on marine mammals. These animals rely heavily on sound for communication, navigation, finding food, avoiding predators. Intense noise can disorient them, cause physical injury, disrupt their behavior, and sometimes even lead to strandings.
Yeah. It's a sobering picture of the environmental costs, this really complex, interconnected web of hazards. But the sources don't just stop there, thankfully. They also give a significant look at what's being done to counter these threats. It's not just about the problem, it's about the ongoing efforts to prevent and mitigate.
And that's a crucial part of the story these sources tell. Prevention and mitigation are multi-layered. It involves regulations, technology, human factors, design, response planning. Stricter regulations and international conventions really form the bedrock of these efforts.
MARPOL comes up repeatedly. Seems like a foundational international treaty here.
The International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, MARPOL. Yep, it's the key global agreement addressing marine pollution from ships. It has different annexes covering specific pollutant types. The sources highlight how specific annexes have driven major changes.
Like the mandate for double hulls on tankers.
Exactly. Annex I, which deals with oil pollution, mandated the phasing out of single-hulled oil tankers in favor of double-hulled designs. That was a direct, significant response spurred largely by the Exxon Valdez disaster. It creates an extra layer of protection against hull breaches. And Annex V, addressing garbage, prohibits the discharge of plastics into the sea, a direct effort to combat marine litter from ships.
And it's not just about having the rules, but making sure they're actually followed.
Right. That's where port state control is vital. National authorities in ports around the world inspect foreign flagged vessels visiting their ports to verify they comply with international regulations like MARPOL. It's a critical enforcement mechanism. It catches non-compliant ships.
Okay, so beyond regulations, technology seems to play an enormous role in preventing accidents in the first place.
Oh, it's transformative. Advanced navigation and communication technologies have drastically improved safety at sea. Systems like AIS, the Automatic Identification System, that allows vessels to broadcast their position, speed, and course in real time, hugely reduces the risk of collisions, especially in, congested waterways.
And better detection of hazards, too.
Yes. Improved radar and sonar help ships detect other vessels, obstacles, underwater features that could cause groundings. And ECDIS electronic chart display and information systems, they integrate navigation data, radar, GPS onto digital charts. Provides much better situational awareness, helps prevent ships from straying into danger. Oh, and modern weather forecasting. Allows ships to route around severe storms, which are a common cause of accident.
But technology isn't everything. The sources also put a lot of emphasis on the human element, the crew operating these ships.
Enhanced crew training and competency are absolutely critical. There's the International STCW Convention Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Seafarers that sets minimum global standards. This helps ensure that the people operating these complex vessels have the necessary skills, knowledge, and professional standards for safe navigation and pollution prevention.
And preparing for the worst, just in case.
Emergency response drills are crucial.
Yeah.
Regular training for handling scenarios like oil spills, fires, hazardous material leaks. It prepares crews to react quickly and effectively if an incident occurs, minimizing the spread and impact of pollution. And increasingly, fatigue management is recognized as essential. Human error linked to tiredness is a major contributing factor in, well, far too many accidents.
Vessel design and maintenance are also key prevention layers mentioned in the sources.
Well, the double hulls we talked about are a prime example of design for safety, but also ongoing, robust structural integrity and diligent, regular inspections of the ship's hull, machinery, equipment that's fundamental to identifying and fixing potential problems before they fail and cause an accident or a leak.
And addressing the smaller sort of routine leaks, too, not just the big disasters.
Absolutely. Prevention isn't just about catastrophic failure. It includes requiring ballast water treatment systems to filter or sterilize water before discharge, preventing invasive species. It's also about good operational practices, proper engine maintenance, using drip pans, ensuring waste is handled correctly on board. All that prevents the cumulative impact of smaller, routine discharges.
Okay. And if, despite all these layers of prevention, an accident does happen, the emergency response is that final crucial step to mitigate environmental damage.
That's where the sources detail things like national contingency plans, basically detailed blueprints for responding to different types of spills or incidents. They outline who does what resources are available, specialized spill response teams with equipment like containment booms, skimmers to recover oil, dispersants. They can be deployed rapidly.
And protecting the wildlife caught up in it.
Yes, the sources highlight the importance of organizations like the Oiled Wildlife Care Network is one example. They provide specialized care and rehabilitation for animals affected by spills. It's a vital part of reducing the ecological toll.
It really sounds like these combined prevention and response efforts are having a tangible effect. The sources point to some real successes already.
They do, yeah. While major accidents still occur and, grab headlines, the sources show that the frequency and the severity of large-scale oil spills have notably decreased over the past few decades. And this is directly linked to the implementation of stricter regulations like MARPOL and, as we mentioned, the widespread adoption of double-hulled tankers after the Exxon Valdez incident really drove that change. The commitment to phasing out older, single-hulled vessels has undeniably reduced the risk of those massive crude oil releases.
And better facilities in ports also contribute positively, right? I saw that mentioned.
Definitely. When ports provide adequate facilities for ships to dispose of their garbage, oily residues, sewage safely and legally, it reduces the incentive for illegal dumping at sea, which is unfortunately a chronic source of pollution. Many ports now either require or incentivize proper waste disposal.
So pulling together all the information from this stack of sources, we see that ship accidents pose this profound and complex threat to the global environment. It extends far beyond just oil spills to include chemicals, plastics, invasive species, even noise.
That's the sobering reality. The sources lay out a grave threat causing long-lasting systemic damage to marine ecosystems and also the human communities that rely on them.
And this is the essential counterpoint, right? The positive message highlighted in the material. Significant continuous global efforts are underway. Through ongoing improvements in regulations, technological advancements, enhanced crew training, better vessel design and maintenance, and more effective emergency response, the overall risk of accidents and their resulting environmental impacts is being significantly reduced and mitigated.
And the sources provide clear evidence this is working, showing that decrease in frequency and severity of major oil spills, driven by things like MARPOL, the adoption of double hulls, and improved port practices.
So you have this picture of serious ongoing threats, but countered by determined, evolving, and demonstrably effective global efforts to enhance safety and protect the environment.
It's a complex, continuous challenge, no doubt about it.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider, drawn directly from the closing points in this material. Given the persistent threats like plastic pollution from lost cargo, invasive species transferred via ballast water, and the problem of ghost fishing gear are still significant environmental burdens highlighted right here in the sources. How does the global maritime community ensure that prevention efforts don't just react to past disasters, but proactively keep pace with the ever-increasing volume, the complexity, and just the changing nature of international shipping trade? It's clearly a problem that requires constant vigilance and adaptation on a massive scale, something to think about.